Well, hello, and welcome back. I am AJ O'Neill, and I'm doing your Beyond Code code live right now. Oh, I've got. Why is this playing audio back? Oh, there we go. Let's not have the echo in my ear. Okay. So I do have the YouTube and the Twitch comments up. We're going to be going over the minimum necessary abstraction that we need in order to make this thing useful as a module, so that it can be, so that I'm not building these projects that I'm building in this module, but rather I'm building this as a module for other projects, and I have to find the right way to export this. I've mentioned this a couple of times, and it's a balance of, so that the hashtag for this is emergent design, which means that you're doing a little bit. Oh, my hair's still a mess from. It's a hot day. I got all sticky, needed to cool off. Emergent design is when you do a little bit of code with the understanding and planning that you have. So you plan a little bit, you document a little bit, you do a little bit of code, you let it sit for a bit, take a break, take a walk, have a chat, whatever, and then you come back to it, and then you continue working on it again. So you're not just flying by the seat of your pants, but you're not trying to plan the whole thing. I guess emergent design is kind of agile. But it's anyway. So that's what we're doing here. Is we're looking at, okay, what can we build to get this functional, and then what does it naturally want to be? Now, before we dig in, first, this should be an epitaph. Is it epitaph or epithet? I don't know what it is, but this should be on my tombstone. You have legal permission to engrave it there for me. If it's not there when I'm dead and you're 3,000 years in the future watching this, don't code hungry. No, that's not it. The quote is, if you're thinking hungry, you're not thinking clearly. So I told you I was hungry, and I also said, oh, if I'm not thinking clearly and being able to problem solve, I'm just going to walk away from this and take the break that I need. But I was hungry. I said I was hungry, so we know that I wasn't thinking clearly. And here's one of the things that I wasn't thinking clearly on. I had a bug in my code, and of course, what did I do? I did the dumb thing. I assumed that the existing code must be where the bug was. The code that I had written months ago must be where the bug was, not the code that I was writing right now. So I'm going to bring up exactly where that was. So we're going to go into, I think it was actually lib session. Yes. All right. So this is where the bug actually is, right here, still is here. So this should be keys. And we can tell this because we have a reference for the Google one. And I think that was also in the blog. Let me check. If it's not in the blog article, it should be. JWK, yes, it is, right here. So I was being hasty and quick, and I wasn't thinking to check my work. And the correct answer, whoops, that's weird. Is prettier not running? No, it is. It's just removing spaces from that array. Oh, whatever. Anyway, I had this in the wrong format. Let me show you let's go back to the thing that I hastily changed in this case, it's a module I wrote, but a third-party module that's already been existing. It's already been tested. This was rest.body.keys.map, and I thought, oh, I must have made a mistake in here. It should have been object.keys.rest.body.map, because this is something that I commonly do. And so I went in and I changed that, and it still didn't work, and so I moved on. But in fact, the problem is that I didn't have my data in the correct format as to spec. Another thing that I found as I was looking over the documentation, which I think is something that I do need to change in key pairs, which, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and go back in here and close out this issue that I opened. Nope. That was correct. See example of JWKS format. Put it there, and let's go ahead and just include that Google one. So if I have this problem again in the future, or somebody else comes across it or something, Documentation for myself and for others. Okay, we're going to close out that comment. And then that one, I think, actually is a bug in that it should give a better error message. And then here's the other thing. We want to respect ops.iss the same as ops.issuers. Also, might not be a bad idea to make it restricted by default. Not sure, as the original use case of this module was for federated auth. So let's not get the two issues confused. Yeah, there we go. Let's call this a side note. That way we don't get it confused. All right, excellent. So I've got that. I'm going to go ahead and close that out now. That one's been closed out. That issue has been fixed. Cool, cool. And I think there was one other thing that's, well, I guess I can go back now and I can change. Let's go back to app.js key pairs. The whole reason that I wanted this in here, whoops, key pair, was for this right here, because issuer, yeah, to do this should not be necessary. Okay. So I was providing the public key manually, even though it should be able to go fetch the public key. Let's test that now it still is fetching the public key. And before we run the test, there's another thing I was thinking about. See the beauty of walking away from something? You get all these shower thoughts. All right, expecting success. So if something fails, we should have F on it. All right, that we're expecting an error. I should find out what that error is and grep for it. And I should do set-o pipe fail. That will make it so that if I pipe to grep and I'm grepping for something, but the something that I want to grep isn't there, that it should fail. I think that's what that is. Let's double check on that in a minute. Okay, let's just get to the point where no cookies expecting error. Let's see what that takes us to. Despite the fact that I keep saying we're at the limit of where bash tests are helpful, I'm going to push a little further. So we should see invalid session. That makes sense. Where else are we expecting an error? Signature is valid. Good. Now the OIDC key is found. Because before we were having an error. And I knew that this code was correct, that the Golang version I'd worked on recently, or probably a year more recently. So I knew that was relatively correct. Oh, am I a little too, there we go. Let me scooch over a little bit there so I don't have my face being cut off as I peer into the code. I'm deep into the code. Okay, enough of that nonsense. Alrighty. Okay, expecting error, invalid session. Is that what we had in our paste buffer here? Yeah, invalid session. So expecting error. Yep. Okay, cool. Whoa, that's not what I meant to do. So I'm going to say let's grep invalid session X. And let's see if that fails at this point. Because my hope is that yes, it will. Okay, cool. So what I might want to do instead is wrap this whole thing in an output and then echo. I think there's a better way to do this. I don't remember what it is. No, we're just going to leave it like that. That's fine. I mean, all we need really is to know that it can and will fail appropriately. Whoops, let's go back. And I think we can do this. Yeah, so you can use a pipe, and then it will know that the next line belongs to it. For the longest time, I used to be doing this right here. I did not realize that the pipe implied that it will carry on to the new line. So, and I found that out because of shell check, which is on webinstall.dev. I don't know if it's on the homepage yet, but it's somewhere. I think I installed it as part of Vim Essentials, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so we want to grep for invalid session there when we're expecting error, and then there's another place. And I should probably put that in the same casing. Yeah, there we go. And then most of these should have an F. The thing is, I was copying and pasting. And so I copied from one that didn't have it. F means fail. So for the ones that are allowed to error, we don't want to fail. And by the way, I could have used JQ for this. I think I could do, let's see, JQ.code, I think. Is that? Let me go take a look. Yeah, let's see. Let's just see what happens when I run this real quick. Expecting error. Invalid session. Good. But what happens if I look for something that isn't there? Okay. Doesn't end. Okay, then I'm going to go back to grep. Grep was good. Grep invalid session. Cool. Let's see, what was this, an ID token? Is that what this was doing? Yeah, so this is ID token, my token. I'm going to replace all instances of my token with my ID token, because I'm pretty sure that's what it means in all instances, or if not, then that's what I want it to mean in all instances, and I want to get it updated. All right, so curl-ss. So we should only see this when there's an error. When there's an error, we should not see it there. We should not see it there. We should not see it there. Okay, good. There's probably more I could do. Okay, inspect. This one. Let's see. Really, I just want to know. Okay, that didn't work. Error. Token signature is not valid. So that should have exited with an exit code and should not have continued going. So I think I'm going to mark that as a to-do. To-do, add issue for key pairs not exiting cleanly on error. Okay, and then what would we say here? So this fails if I forget how we do this. So if, is it like this? Or just like this? Oh, I don't know, because that's null. Blah. I'm not going to bother with it right now. Okay. All right, so this should have in it, for sure, sub, right? That should always be there. All right, I'm not going to go any further with this. Good enough. All right, what changes did I make? These are just fix-up changes, right? Yeah. So I'm just going to mark this as... It's just a fix-up. Okay. So now, let's move on to the heart of the problem now that we've done a little bit of cleanup. Oh, and we probably need to do some documentation here real quick. So how do we use this thing as of right now? So I think there's a little bit more to it than I want to be there ultimately. Especially with the key pair stuff. I think I'm not sure how to handle that. But I really don't want this to be dependent on the key pair stuff. But it's okay. It is right now. It's fine. What all is dependent on the key pair stuff? That was that it? Really? That seems like a bad idea. It seems like that wouldn't even work. Because, all right, where's all this middleware? Let's bring this one down just a rung here. So we've got the verified JWT middleware, but we also have, where's my other middleware? Okay, yeah, that wasn't going to work. So that was another mistake I made. I was passing in the key pair to the verifier, but not to the session, which that's problematic. But this was supposed to be issuers, right? So it wasn't validating the specific issuer anyway. Okay, let's see. Where did we go wrong? We're going to get to the meat of the problem of figuring out the abstraction stuff soon enough. Just give me another minute here, because there's always, you know, those break time thoughts of like, oh, here's some stuff that I need to fix. All right, key pairs, assign. Wait, I thought we got rid of this. I thought we replaced this. I thought we got rid of all the to-dos for that. Huh. Weird. Okay, well. All right, jwt.verify. Where's key fetch? Key fetch is used here and used here. There it's just decoding, which is fine. So we can skip verification of token because the cookie is already signed and verified. That's why we can just decode right there, because we know that's good. Although, yeah, because the cookie's expiration date should match that, so we should check both of those, but it's really kind of redundant to rethink this. All right, verify ops, verify ODC. All right, verify. So this actually should be issuers. That's what the documentation said. Okay, so that's why that wasn't verifying that way. What else have we got here? this? Verify OIDC token. Verify ops. Is that the only place we're using that? I verify Google token. Let's see if we got some verify ops here. Google verify ops. And what have we got here? Okay. So I want to go check verify Google. Let's make sure that the verify Google token is in fact using the issuer verification. Now we should have a match. Let's see, verify ops. Okay, I don't see the issuer being passed in. Verify ops issuers. There we go. And I think that it's actually fair to do like this. No, I don't want to. Okay, verify ops. Verify ops. Issuers. Yes. Okay. So the good news is that even without that turned on, actually, I don't think there's good news there. That needs to be there. Absolutely 100%. Because it will verify, it would verify the issuer. Okay, so that was a security vulnerability in this at this time because I was not reading the documentation and I did not test it with a bad issuer. So that would be easy enough to test. So let's see. Yeah, I should make a token that looks like a Google token where I give it a different issuer and double check. So I'm going to put a to-do here. Well, actually, I'm going to put that in a repository. Let's see. Needs test for invalid token. No, invalid issuer. For valid token with untrusted issuer. What happens if I set up a valid issuer, i.e. Actually, technically this should be EX because IE means AKA or alias of or something like that, and EX means example, as does EG. Okay, what if I set up a valid issuer and send it to the Google Auth endpoint? Will it be rejected? Let's prove it. Okay, so note for myself there. Got it. Need to check that. But I'm feeling much more confident now that I've let things sink in and not hurrying through and actually reviewed the documentation, that I'm in the right place now. Okay, so now we're at a good place to start thinking about how we're going to refactor some of this doobly-doo. Dang it, I keep on using the word doobly-doo wrong. Ugh, life's so hard. And by the way, I do have the comments open on Twitch and YouTube for anybody that is tuning in. So I'll try to keep an eye on that from time to time. Okay. So the key thing that we discovered last time was that there's going to be this get user function. Let me just go up to the top of the file here and then go down. So as we set up the middleware, we're going to set it up potentially with a key pair, with an issuer, and with a get user function. And the get user function, once the Google token's validated, or our own token is validated, or the credentials, well, actually the credentials will get validated in the get user function, which maybe that should be split up into secondary. I have to think about that because we don't want people assuming, well, it is called credentials. So you get user by whichever one fits your fancy. But anyway, so here we're doing get user by credentials. Here we're doing get user by the Google Auth token info. Here we're doing get user by our own decoded JWT, otherwise known as a JSON web signature, and its claims. And the same here. Yeah. But the other thing that we need, I'm actually going to rename this from get user to get ID claims, because that's what this really is. And then, because we're saying, give me the claims, or give me the details about this as an identifier. So first name, username, things that are small and worth sticking in the token don't get bloated here, right? But this is an ID token. But we also need, in the case of the exchange, we also need to get access claims, because we're going to put the ID claims in the ID token. We're going to put the access claims in the access token. So this is the other bit of abstraction that we need. I think, now there's going to be some other things that we need to be able to pass as options, like what the expiration should be. We're already passing in the issuer. But in the spirit of keeping the abstraction really thin, most of the helper functions get to stay in here. And I might move a couple of these upwards so that this reads a little easier. Sometimes what I do for stuff like this is I name the function the name of the route. So for example, r auth in, that wouldn't really make sense. Let's see, what does this do? Yeah, r auth in, or r API auth in, perhaps not found handler. And then I'd move this out. And then I'd put this right here. It can make it easier to read. It can make it harder to read. It can be better. It can be worse. So it just depends. I like to have all of the routes kind of in a row, because I feel like that makes it easier to read at a glance and get the most valuable information out. But we'll sit on that for a minute. And I'll go back up to where, let me go back up to the top, get ID claims. So we know we need get ID claims, and now I know I also need get access claims. And these could be the same. That's okay. In fact, I'm going to make a little helper that is get, so we've got get ID claims here. So if, no, maybe that's not where this should go. I think where this should go is right up here. So if not get ID claims, then if not get access claims, then we should throw an error. So throw new error. You must provide a callback function for both there we go. Let me say that out loud. So you must provide a callback function for at least one of get ID claims and get access claims. That's a fair error message. And then the opposite would also be true. So otherwise, we could say get ID claims equals get access claims. And then the opposite's also true. So if not get access claims and not get ID claims, well, that one's already happened, actually. So we don't need to worry about that scenario, because if we got to this point, then we know, yeah, and then we could actually make this an else because this is exclusive. Because if we don't have either, then we're going to throw an error. If we have ID claims, then we're going to end up in here. No, let's see, else if. Maybe that's the way we want to play it. What's the easiest to read way out of these? Oops, something's wrong here. Too many tokens. All right. If not, wait, hold on. I'm not thinking about this clearly. If not get ID claims and not get access claims, throw an error. You got to have one or the other, at least one or the other. But if get access claims, then get ID claims equals get access claims. Cool, got it. So let's say we have ID claims. So if we do have ID claims, then if we do have access claims, no, if we don't have access claims, then I don't need to throw this. Okay, because there's only one case. All right, yep, that's right. I don't know if I could make that easier to read. If you got a suggestion on that, comment away. Okay. So I'm going to have to document both of these. I'm going to go ahead and get that started. Let's open up the README here. And actually, let me just take a look at some of the sample code. Get user. So this is going to be get ID claims right here. And we'll go ahead and put get access claims. I guess this whole thing right here really says it well enough. That's the only place it's used, so it's all good. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is how we use this. And then let's define what is get user. Okay, and actually get access claims is kind of uniquely different. Because it's gonna have, well, we need to go look at that code, but it's going to accept something. So what I want to build out next for this is an endpoint that will do a sub account for a user. That would be a good one for this. And give me just a second here. I need some lotion for my hands. With the work going on in the garage and whatnot. It's just been getting really dry from overwashing. Oh crap, now I can't use my keyboard and my trackpad. I'll just have to sit and think for a minute. Okay. So get access claims, get ID claims. Yeah, the thing that I don't like about this is I'm using the technical terminology, which is correct, but it's also stuff that people aren't really familiar with. People aren't very familiar with what are ID claims, what are access claims. Just explain the difference between authentication and authorization is challenging. So I don't know if that's where I want to leave this. Also, what's up with my prettier here? Wrap, pros wrap, always. Okay. Then why aren't you wrapping? Oh, weird. Huh. Now it's wrapped. Okay, that's fine. Oh. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, definitely need a better example than that. Might need to change the name of these things again, but we're at a good place to move forward. So what we really need is, let's rename this get user to get ID claims. And yeah, we'll get that user by password later. So get ID claims. And then here we need to do get access claims. And I think what I need to do before we go too far with this well, maybe, yeah, I'm not sure what the abstraction should be, but we'll discover it. So I don't think that account ID should actually show up here. Now roles, if account ID isn't going to show up, then roles shouldn't show up either. But for the purposes of the demo, okay, I'm going to just note this. These are auth things for an access token, but for the demo, ... There we go. 58. What's on line 58? What did I not do this time? Right? Right? All right, so kind of a similar thing. This one, though, yeah, we're not gonna have the same problems between these two, because when we're looking at access claims, the user is at that point going to be a first party verified user, or I guess we could allow getting access claims. I don't know, maybe this should just be get claims, or go back to get user. I'm going to build it out separately, and I think I am going to put it back together as get user. There's a balance here, because what a function can do, and that can be confusing, or you can create two functions that have unfamiliar names, and that can be confusing. What the purpose of these is, this one is not likely to have all of this stuff. I don't know what to call this thing. Okay. The ID token, we're focused on ID. The access token, we're focused on what is that person allowed to do. So maybe what roles do they have, or do they have access to specific assets or specific API resources, etc. So I'm just going to hollow this out a little bit. Okay, this is the right place for that. All right, I'm going to get to where this is going to be used right now. So let's go back into the session bit here, and where we have the exchange, we should be taking also, is there a rec.body? Verify ID token. I gotta take my glasses off. My eyes are getting tired. It's getting late. I don't know if that helped. Get access claims. Oh, it is late. Gosh, it's past midnight. I didn't realize. I should have realized. We want to take rec.body basically and say the user has the ability to, when they do their exchange of their ID token for their access token, they have the ability to make certain requests. And I'm not so sure that they shouldn't have the ability to make those requests at all times. Make those requests and the get ID claims just as well. And then this is just it's not an enforced distinction, it's just a conventional distinction. But so for example, in the rec.body, I might want to specify which account do I want to get an access token for. But I need something to call that. I'm just going to call it claims. I mean, I could call it assertions. I could call it grants. It's not really the proper term. It's more like requests. Let's see. I request. Then I make a claim. I'm granted claims. Signed. Their claim. All this nomenclature. And it's changed over the years. Because we used to call, what we now call claims, we used to call grants. And I think the distinction is because it's inverted. I'm claiming that I have an access right to this, but only if the token is verified by an issuer that I trust, am I granted access to it. Whereas before it was, I'm granting access to this thing in a token. But that's, well, based on what I just said, that's not entirely appropriate because we don't know whether or not it's granted. We know that it's claimed to be granted, and it's granted if the claim can be verified. So I think that, I guess it's just as well to call that claim still. So I'm going to go with it. And I think I'm going to put it in all three places. And I think I'm going to leave the two separate for now so that I can leave it as a talking point for the next place I'm going to use it. But ultimately, I think that, oops. It does need to coalesce back into one. So I think I did that for the purpose of my own understanding, but not something that's going to remain in the code. Yeah, get user is going to be much simpler, and then I can just document, if you understand the difference in an auth token, then here's how I recommend that you use this. But then I also would need to know, okay, so it would have to be if you're getting back a JWS, is the only time that I would, why restrict it? If there are claims, it's an access token. I think that's fair. It'll give back an ID token if no specific claims. I don't know. I don't know which way to go about this. Because they should be different. They should be distinct. It should be okay. Maybe I can have a function that's called get user, and if you want to distinguish, then you fill out whatever. I'm getting into the weeds here. Let me go forward. Emergent design. As I continue, the design will become more clear. As I write more code, as I write more tests, as I consider the use case, as I understand the use case better, the correct design choices will appear. I don't need to make every design choice up front. All right, but let's just go ahead and have the ability to do all this stuff in these. Okay, good enough for now. And then I'm going to copy this one, this function, my helper function for get ID claims. And I'm going to do get access claims. And then I'm going to do get ID claims. Oh, that's never used anywhere. Interesting. Okay, so that was never being passed through anyway. All right, let's do that one there. Oh, those are essentially the same. They should coalesce. Let's do that. Just going through to see where I'm using this. Make sure I'm using the helper function that's wrapped with the issuer stuff, but I think that that wrapper is wrong. All wrappers are wrong. Should be claims. Okay, because we're wrapping this with the issuer. Why? Because this may not return the issuer. Okay. Fill in ID claim defaults. Fill in access claim defaults. Exchange. Nope, not where I want to be. Let's go back here. Okay, so let me go back to the app.js, get access claims, and I guess I could do get ID claims and make sure that these additional, I don't want to call those claims, but I can't call them grants. What do I call them? Requests, assertions? I wonder if there's something else in the RFC spec. Let me go see OIDC, RFC, claims. Let's see what other terms they use. Identity claims and tokens. Events and scope identifier. Scopes. Terminology. Claims. Requesting claims using scope values. So I think it might be a requested claim might be a scope. Or claims. Okay. What's an ACR claim? Context RCR claim matches. There's voluntary claim, ACR values, non-essential. What does it stand for? Authentication class context reference? I think we're a little too deep there. Let's just take a look at this. Okay, yeah. Profile. Oh, cool. So this is actually standardized. I did not realize that these particular picture, website, gender, birth date, zone info, Oh, that's cool. I doubt anybody follows this. Well, Auth0 might. Okta might. I doubt Google does. Well, maybe they do. It's funny because, you know, Facebook basically created Auth. Twitter created Auth 1. Facebook created Auth 2. Google created OIDC. GitHub was, you know, in the mix there somewhere. And essentially, the only people that follow the standards are like Auth0 and Okta, because they're the only companies, rather, because they're the only ones that developed the product late enough to take advantage of the standards after they'd been developed. Okay. Claims and or ID token. Let's see, what does this look like? User info, ID token. Yeah, this looks like this is right. A claims request is as follows. Note that a claim. Yeah, I don't know about this whole ACR thing. It's going a little bit far for me. Claims parameter. Support the claims parameter is optional. The value is JSON object. All right. request parameter enabling blah 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 claims. Okay, so anyway, nomenclature. In terms of nomenclature, I know this is, kind of stupid, but I like to use the correct name for things. And where there is a name that exists, I think it's appropriate. I don't want to spend too much time digging into that, but I feel like it's appropriate to say that claims, and the way I'm going to use it is probably wrong, because it sounds like for any special non-standard claim, they want you to use these ACR values, which I get it, but I'm not so sure about that right now. We'll see. Emergent design. Okay. Yeah, I think this complexity of distinguishing between the ID and the access claims really belongs in the application, not in this layer. But that needs to be able to distinguish where it came from. So I don't know where that should be. Whoops. But this should know, for example, that it's coming from the Exchange endpoint versus the session endpoint, and so forth. All right, but let's just continue here. It's getting a little late. I'm going to need to wrap this up. But I do want to at least get one demonstrable demo mabob in here. So what I need to do is let's establish a difference between, for the purpose of testing this right now, let's establish a difference between the ID token and the auth token. So we're only going to accept a JWS. So if not JWS, then throw new error, invalid credentials. So that's our very own JWS that we're looking for. Google would already be pre-validated and everything. So this is essentially our ID token. This is maybe this should be called ID token. To do JWS ID token. Although it's been parsed already, so whatevs. Anyway. Let me go back to our test where I am doing the exchange. My ID token. I don't know if I need that, because it's already in the cookie. Let me go look at the API of this real quick. Exchange. Verify ID token versus verify session. Meh. We'll go with it. We'll just go with it for now. Technically, I think either should work. But what we do want to do is we do want to have, oops, content type application JSON. And it turns out you don't need to put there's something like this. Char set equals UTF-8. I used to do this, I don't know, was it comma? Was it comma or was it semicolon and then comma? Something like that. Turns out you don't need to do that because application JSON implies char set equals UTF-8. And there's some parsers that don't handle the char set stuff correctly, so best not to use it. All right, and then what do we need? -D. And then we just do data. I guess we do need to signal with that get user whether this. I guess we could hand back both. You know, we could say you can hand back here are the claims for an access token, and here are the claims for an ID token. That might be fair. I have to think about that. I know I'm jumping back and forth, but I'm going to put a note in here for this. Let's see. To do. Misnomer can go away. Signal whether ID token or access token or both should be provided. I think that's fair. So what's returned here, I think should be returned as something like, say like this, ID claims. ID claims? I don't know. But yeah, I think something like that would make sense. Okay. So let's go back to the test here. What do I want to signal? I want to signal that the account that I want is the Marco account. Let's say account ID Marco. Is that? Okay. So Marco is my admin account. So maybe I want to get my Polo account because that's my default account anyway. So I want to get an access token for Polo, and then later on, I want to exchange that for admin because I'm going to get an error down below. But it's about time for me to get off. So let's go with Marco, because that shouldn't rock the boat too much. No, I need to go with Polo because I need to be able to see that error so I can red-green refactor. The danger of getting things right on the first try is sometimes your code works because you're designing it to work, even though the conditions are not being met. So, you design your test data and your test functions, etc., around the idea that I should get this back, and if I get this back, my code is functioning correctly, but because your test data is already the correct data that matches the query that you expect, rather than being more restrictive or expansive or whatever. So the idea of red-green refactor is that you actually want to see things fail so that you know that, for example, when I have a user token, I don't have admin rights, because if you check to see if you have admin rights and you do, it doesn't mean that it's working. It just means that the code that you wrote is executing. I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. So you need to assign yourself a user token to see if your admin token privileges are working, because then you'll get an error. You'll be red. And then you can go and apply your admin token. So I'm going to put my non-admin token here. And let's see, in my Git access, I'm going to get some claims. And let's do this then. All of that's well and good, but let's do if claims and claims.account ID, then user.account ID equals, and then of course we don't want to give the user whatever they claim. That would be very bad. We want to do user.accounts.filter.sum. Which is the best way to do this? Just go with .sum for now. And we'll just add this inside. So the benefit of .sum is that when you return true, it stops iterating. Now in this case, it doesn't matter, but there we go. Just trying to put in something so that it'll format. I don't know why my formatter is off, but at least it works on save. But somewhere, I think I'm probably specifying 4. Yeah, I think in my main Vim settings, I've got 4 spaces specified, and so things get all messed up. Anyway, so there we've got user.accounts.sum if claims.account ID equals account.id, then user account.id is equal to account.id, and we can return true. So here we should undefine, well, not undefined, but set to undefined, because those are actually 2 different things. Account underscore ID okay, so, and then if not, so we could wrap this whole thing in an if, because technically this returns true if the true condition is ever met. Yeah. But I don't like the way that that looks, and I don't want to assign a variable for it. So I'm just going to do it like this. If we don't have an account ID, then we should throw a new error to do bad permission request. Request, let's call that. Alrighty. Now let's go to our test here. And let's see if we can do polo x. And then we should test right there. Oh, internal server error, that's not where we expected the error to be. Okay. And obstock claims that issuer should be in the form of HTTPS. Oh, for all my well-meaning, form of all right, which library is this? Key pairs? Okay, so if issuer claims.issuer, if not claims.issuer, and da 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 da. Let's see what's going on here. Where's this coming from? Sign JWT. If we have that, but we don't have that, and we don't have false, that's undefined. Okay, so sign JWT should have the issuer. I'm on board with that. That's not in here, that's in the session bit. Sign JWT. Okay, should have the issuer. I'm on board. Is the issuer not being passed in all the way up here? It should be. Is there another place? Let's do set number so we can see how far apart these apart. 127, 157. And so far so good. All right, so let's see more specifically where that error was coming from. Do we have a path on this? Session. Okay. Grant token and cookie. All right, what's the problem here? Oh, I think I know what it is actually. In my haste, I set issuers. Let's see. Yeah, but this is the session middleware. There we go. That's more reasonable. Okay. So we should not be getting an internal error on this. Accounts.sum, user.accounts.sum. Let's double check on that. Users, accounts. Looks like that. Oh, I see. I see. Indeed. So this is a lot easier than that then. So I simply want to say claims.account ID. So let account equal if not account, and then user.account ID equals account.id. All right, that should be it. Still, to do access bad request. Fair enough. Let's see. Console.log claims.account ID. Claims.account ID. And how about user.accounts? Seems like that should be fine. Okay, expecting new token. Oh, right. Because we selected the bad ID on purpose to be able to show that the test fails. Excellent. Well done. Alrighty. Now this, I don't think should be possible because we should not see, let's see, pull user. Oops, let's see. Where are roles defined? User.roles. User.roles. Roles, 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 roles. Aha. All right, let me see what our faux database code is doing here. Oops, let me get rid of that. So our faux database code is giving us an account ID and is giving us roles. Great. Whoops. Our faux database code probably shouldn't be doing that. Let's move this to where yeah, I'm of two minds about this. I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm just going to put to do here. To do move up a layer. because that's going to be bad to have two different places where roles could be assigned. Faux show user.roles equals account.roles. All right, now let's test that this gets failed. Yes, that is correct. Unauthorized, that is exactly what we want to see. And then if I was going to take this step further, I would get the new token that is, in fact, maybe I can. Time's up, but I think this is small enough. Let me go ahead and save and commit. So I'm just going to whip commit this. Whip distinguish between ID and access tokens. All right, let me go ahead and copy the exchange bit here. I think maybe fair enough just to comment that out. All right. And so this one then, I actually do want error. Well, I'll copy and paste this. That's what I'll do. And we'll put this one here, and we'll say expect error. Expecting error. Expecting error. Okay. So I'm going to do that. And then what error am I expecting exactly? Something like to-do underprivileged. Unauthorized. Yeah. I want to get the Marco token, and that token will be authorized. Okay, cool. All right, I'm in a good place. Made some good progress. Let me go back. Let's see. I'm just going to close that out. I can open it up again. Okay, those things I want to make blog articles out of. This I don't need to see right now. This I don't see right now. That I can get out of. And then are there any of these things that I can nix? Okay, that one's done. Well, granted, it's in the whip branch, so it's not done, but okay, let me think. What are the next things that I need? Audit trail would be pretty good, but we kind of have a place to put in an audit trail because we're calling the Git ID and the Git access claims, Git ID claims, Git access claims. Let's see. Let's parent module, requiring module. Let's call it that. Requiring module decide on ID token versus access token. Okay, post session default to ID token. Post exchange default to access token. Whether or not to issue an ID token or access token should be somewhat up to the requiring module. Perhaps, probably signified by the return values of, whoops, get ID claims / get access claims / get user. Okay, that's one thing we need still to still do. Let me think. What is next on this project? So I can, tomorrow, what can I start integrating? For the one, I think it's pretty much there. I just need to document. Well, okay. Create / document server / API tokens. I should, whoops, be able to have a non-expiring token identified by JTI, probably. So JTI is basically the ID of the token itself. Subject is the ID of the person or thing that the token represents. The claims are the access that's granted in some cases. The JTI is the ID of the token itself. So subject is about the ID. Claims are about the ID. So the sub is about the subject. Sub is about the ID or the authentication. Claims is about the authorization, and that's the access token. And then JTI specifies the token itself so that you could blacklist a token, say, I don't want this token to be valid anymore. So I do want to be able to have a non-expiring token so that one server can call another server. And if I get that, I think the one project is done, because it needs to be able to read information from an employee database, which is in a spreadsheet, which is, I think I'm just going to recommend we use Go for that because it has a CSV module built in that just works. That might be a tough sell in this particular case, but I'm going to recommend that. Okay. So I think that project is the one that's closest to being finished up with this code, because I think we just need to connect to the database, and then this does the checks. I think this is done actually for that use case. I'm going to have to double check the requirements and have a conversation, but I think this code is ready to, again, there's going to be a little bit of a change, and you'll probably do another part 8 that continues with the finding the right abstraction, because there's going to be a couple things that need to get passed in, but those are going to be clarified in the conversation with the customer. And on the other side, I think that's where we still have the API token requirement, and that's something that needs to get worked out, and that one's a little bit more advanced. We do have more of the ID versus access token issue there. For both of them, we need to test the whole untrusted issuer bit. The audit trails probably solved the magic link and MFA 2FA. That's the stuff where I think that in order to do that discovery, I'm going to have to do some stuff off camera and then maybe bring it back. But I think the Twilio will be able to implement here in the open and then integrate it with the other code. I think I'm in a really good place. I think this project is at a point where it's really taking shape. the development of it is going to slow down, and it's going to be more about careful decisions of how to expose to the customers that are going to be using it, and keeping it simple enough that people who are not familiar with all of the details of the token work can use it, but that also to someone who does know, perhaps even, well, if they know better than me, then they'll probably get annoyed because I can't hold that whole spec in my head. I can just get close to it on the parts that I feel are the most important. But anyway, we also want, for people that are a little bit more advanced in their understanding of authentication, authorization, and how these things can be used, that they've got some flexibility and it's not hidden away from them. And there's always that balance of, wizarding things and making it impossible for people that are pro, and exporting things and making it too daunting for people that are beginners. And I got to find that balance, because it's not just me that has to work in this code base, it's other people that have to work in this code base. And so if the handoff doesn't go well, then I fail, right? I haven't earned my paycheck until the handoff goes well. Not to say that I don't get my paycheck, but I haven't earned it until the handoff goes smoothly. And so we'll see what happens tomorrow. And then I don't think I'm going to be live streaming this tomorrow. We'll see. Maybe I will in the evening, because I will have had some of those conversations. But we'll see how things go. Anyway, if this was useful at all to you, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to continue to watch this type of stuff, check the doobly-doo for the links to the live channel, the Beyond Code channel, some of the other things, including gear, and hit the subscribe button and the bell. If you're on the live channel, you probably want to hit the bell with personalized notifications, because I do other random weird stuff too. That all said, you have a wonderful night. Adios. I'll go click over here and then it'll work.